Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. And with me today, I have Abby Eaton. Hi Abby.
Hey, how are you?
Not bad, not bad. Can you tell our listeners sort of who you are and what you do?
So my name's Abby Eaton. I'm a British racing driver and probably most known for being the driver on the Grand Tour with Jeremy Clarkson and the boys.
Yeah. Take me back. How did you get into becoming a professional racing driver, coach, person, all things?
So it's probably a very similar story to most kind of drivers in the industry, is that it was all kind of down to the family. So my dad has always raced cars, bikes, anything since he was a young kid. So when I was born, I kind of was, in fact, I was at a track in my mum's tummy. I think I actually first went to a circuit when I was 2 months old in a little pushchair. So I kind of grew up around motorsport. I grew up around, race tracks, and obviously watched my dad race himself and kind of idolised him. And I started when I was 10 years old in a go-kart. And then kind of from there, this will be my 18th year now in racing. So it's gone quite quickly.
So you're little, you're doing a bit of karting.
Mm-hmm.
And were you sort of taking it pretty seriously or just for fun?
So originally when I first kind of started in go-karts, I just viewed it as like a hobby, just a bit of fun with my dad on weekends off, going and hanging out with him. And I never really thought massively about making it a career. And I had kind of little thoughts towards it, but it was only when I got in a car for the first time on a track that I was like, wow, like this is what I want to do. I think the first thought when I jumped in a car was just that you can actually feel the car moving around and, sliding and moving underneath you, whereas a kart tends to be, if you're doing it right, pretty planted.
What was the first car you drove on track?
It was a Citroen Saxo VTR. So it was the championship was called Sax Max. And my first go on a proper track was at Donington Park. And I remember I had Stefan Hodgetts sat next to me. And yeah, it was wicked. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. My first actual go, I think, in a car, kind of driving it in anger, was at Blyton Park. Yeah. And that was very first kind of set up. So I remember going around there with my dad in the passenger seat, and he was a little bit nervous. I was only 2 seconds off his time, so I was quite pleased with that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
I was pretty impressed with myself.
Did you find it difficult transitioning from a go-kart to a road car? And I know or a race car.
The main thing was kind of, obviously kart's rear wheel drive and the Saxo is front wheel drive. And because I'm kind of not from a family where we can go testing lots, just down to kind of like a budget, it was kind of jump in and get on with it. And I remember before I did it, my dad was saying, look, like in a front wheel drive car, if you have a slide, you have to make sure you put your foot down on the accelerator. And I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. And so I had that in my mind. And it was actually my first race was at Donington Park in the Saxo. And going through Old Hairpin, one of the guys in front had run off and brought a load of mud onto the track. And I remember I went over it and the rear of the car stepped out. So my natural response is rear wheel drive. So I turned into it and I went to lift off. And then I was like, oh no, I've got to floor it. And then floored it. And it basically just fired me off the wall. And I was like, I was absolutely gutted. Like, I knew straight away what had happened, but I was just so gutted because my dad had spent all winter building this car and I just crashed it in my first race.
Oh, very so.
It didn't take too much to kind of fix it, but I didn't crash again for that reason. I think I got through the full season without having a shunt. So I just got it out the way nice and early.
Yeah.
But I learnt fast, put it that way.
Yeah, I've done exactly that. I think many people that have driven a lot of rear wheel drive and then driven something fast front wheel drive has had a sort of random firing off the wrong way.
Yeah, it's mainly with the front wheel drive, it's getting the lock off again. Yeah. You kind of catch it and you're like, this feels quite heroic, and then it properly bites you the way. So it's just you've really got to keep in touch with where the steering wheel's at as to how much lock you've actually got in the car.
So then you sort of progressed up through a variety of faster cars.
So from the Saxo, I went into, it was a Corsa BXR, so that was production touring cars back in the day. And that was kind of my first year of senior racing, if you like. And it went well. We ended up winning the Class B championship, but I felt I kind of didn't really learn a lot. I told you the dog would start kicking off. So I ended up winning like 15 out of 18 races, and it was nice. I ended up almost kind of driving around, almost like a bit of a track day. But it was good to obviously get that first championship win under my belt, but I wanted to really get stuck in and learn some more. So from there, we ended up going into MX5s, and I've kind of not done a full year all the way through. It's kind of been bits and bobs where I'm going to have to let the dog out. I'm sorry about this. If listeners know me, they know the dog, and they know that she's a pain in the backside. So I went into MX5s, and my dad built the car as well, and kind of it was done as and when we could. So I think I ended up doing from 2011 to 2013, I kind of did maybe 2 or 3 races a year. And then we were like, right, let's get stuck in. Let's try and do a full season, campaign, which we did in 2014, MX5 Super Cup. And it was so much fun, really, really competitive. We really had to dig deep and work hard. And, doing that with a family run team as well was something quite special. And then we ended up winning the championship again. So it was just
awesome.
Yeah, it was a wicked year.
I've done a little bit of MX5 racing in a Mark 1 in the UK series a little bit. And I couldn't believe how fast, competitive it is.
Yeah,
it's like
so
40
close,
cars or whatever, and everyone's on it.
Yeah, and that's why you end up with paint being traded a lot, because you're fighting for like tenths, sometimes even like half a tenth. And, you've kind of got to make a bit of a clever lunge on someone, and you've got to hope that they know that you're going to do that and stuff like that. So I did a one-off race in the Mark 1s at Croft in 2010, I think. It was the year after the production touring car. And that's when I was like, this is cool. And we did the Mark 3, which was the newer car, because of that one race. So yeah, it is wicked fun. And they're so cheap to run in comparison to, other cars for the same kind of lap times that you get out of them.
Yeah, that's it. And it's just having a good battle is more fun than being in just something faster.
Yeah.
Personally, anyway. Yeah.
100%.
And then, so you did a bit of Mazdas. And then where did you go from there?
Where did I go from there? So from Mazda, I jumped into GT Cup. So that was 2015, year after. So I raced with Jeff Steele Racing in a BMW M3 E46 GTR, mouthful. So that was, again, another weapon, quite a big kind of heavy car, but it was, over 500 brake, big V8 in it, and sequential box and all that kind of stuff. So for me, that was a big step up in kind of different techniques on how to drive, and it was endurance racing, and it wasn't massively long races. I think they were ending up being about an hour or something like that, but you'd share it with the second driver. And really, really enjoyed that. And again, we ended up only doing kind of a handful of races with it, but I think we ended up finishing second overall or something like that. So again, it was, a really successful year, and it was just mainly what my thoughts behind doing what I was doing was just trying to kind of gain experience in stuff that could potentially, get me towards GT racing, because, ultimately, if you put your sensible hat on, the easiest way to make a career in motorsport is through the GT endurance side of things. But really, kind of the fire in my belly is like, touring car races, and because that's what I grew up watching my dad do in Eurocar, is the cut and thrust and like half an hour races and stuff like that. But yeah, I just thought, right, this is what I want to do, so I'm going to try and kind of get the foundations in place to do GT stuff. So with that, the 2015 season rolled into British GT in 2016. I was in the Maserati Gran Turismo, and that was my first year of kind of proper endurance racing, if you like. It was an interesting year.
How did you find the transition from shorter races to longer races?
You just get a lot more red in the face and a bit more sweaty. The actual, I guess it comes down to more of like a full team effort, because you might be fighting for like tenths on track, but actually when it comes down to the pit stop and the driver change, that could win or lose a lot. And my year, we were kind of with a team that were learning. It was their first year and something like that. And I worked out that every single pit stop we did was between 7 seconds and 2 minutes too long. So we finished fourth a lot in the races. So, it is what it is. And, there are lessons that have been learnt there. But yeah, the whole strategy side of things. So with one of the races is the Silverstone 500. So it's about, I think it works out about 3 hours long, something like that. And I remember it was chucking it down at one point, and then it was super dry, and it was like when do we put wets on, when do we go to slicks, how many pit stops do we do? And there was a lot of stuff strategy-wise that went in behind the scenes. And I guess that's the side of thing that you've got to get used to is if I mess up, like it messes stuff up for everyone else and my teammate. Whereas in single format racing, if I mess up, it just ruins it for myself. Yeah. But there's a bit more responsibility with endurance stuff.
Do you find sort of psychologically you have to, I don't know, do you think about things a bit more because of that? Because you know that you've got to hand the car back to other people, or you sort of attack it in a similar way?
I mean, you've still got to, crack on and be quick, but there might be a certain move that you're like, I think it'll come off, but like I'm handing over to my teammate in like 10 laps and I don't really want to give him a car that might be a bit battered, or if I do this and it doesn't come off, I've ruined it. So you have to be a little bit more kind of certain with the moves you're making, and also think that there might be another driver there that's potentially paying for your racing, so you're there to be fast and you're there to bring the car home.
Yeah. When you moved up from slightly slower cars like that Mazda to GT type cars, what did you have to sort of change driving wise? What's the difference in driving those cars in terms of, what do you have to do? Technique, or they're just faster?
I think definitely with the MX-5s, it's all about your minimum speed everywhere, because they're not the fastest things in the world. You've just got to maximise the speed wherever you are. Whereas there are some GT cars that you kind of do to the same degree, but it might be that they're a bit heavy, but they've got a really grunty engine. So you really want to maximise getting the straight line as early as possible at the corner, so you can use the engine grunt to get you around the lap. I think mainly it was probably just kind of getting used to it. It's really strange, actually. I remember the first time Oulton Park is my favourite circuit, and I had great success there all the time. And then obviously went there with the Maserati, and I cannot tell you how different the track is when you go from something slow driving on the track to something fast. Like, I'm like, the corners all seem different. They're all so close, and you've got to be like on the exit of like turn 1, you're already thinking about like turn 2, but you soon acclimatise and get used to that feeling. But yeah, I remember my first practice session at Oulton. I came in, I was like, Dad, the track seems so different.
Yeah. It is going around tracks at different speeds. So have you driven around somewhere like Cadwell in something really fast?
Not anything really fast, no. I think, MX-5s mainly, Lotus Cortina, which felt fast, like rickety.
For those that don't know, Cadwell Park is like I would sort of say it's like the Nürburgring of the UK or something. It's just this tiny little strip of tarmac that goes winding around some hills and stuff.
It's mental. It's a bike track, so two MX-5s, for example, you can only just get two side by side in certain parts of the circuit, and like it makes for fun racing. But yeah, I mean, if it was wider like it is at Oulton Park, imagine like GT cars going around there. Yeah, it'd be so cool.
Be mad. It's taking off.
Yeah.
So you raced some GT stuff. And then did you race a bit more? And then when did Grand Tour sort of come along?
So I did finish British GT 2016, and then basically ended up having a year out from in fact, 2016 was my last full year of racing. I got asked to do a one-off drive in Blancpain endurance series at Monza in 2017. So I got the opportunity, and it was kind of a bit of a shootout. The guy with the car wanted a girl to drive with him, and there was me and two other girls. My first ever time in a GT3 car, my first ever time at Monza, and I'm like, oh my God, like, I've got so much to get my head around here. Like, this is blowing my mind. Ended up being the fastest, so got the drive. And then, my first ever race was with 52 other cars on the grid at Monza. And I'm like, my goodness. But we did all right. We ended up winning the cup that we were in. So again, that was positive. And then kind of from there, I've kind of just done odds and sods really of races. And it was, I think it was just after 2018 that I got the call about the Grand Tour. So it was basically, I got sent an email and it said, can you come down to the track, just meet the team, we might want to do some filming with you, just to see how you get on. And
Had you applied or anything like that?
No, literally just out of the blue, completely out of the blue. Nice. And to start off with, I'm thinking which one of my friends is it that's winding me up? And then all of them were like, it's not, genuinely, we haven't said anything. So I ended up going down to the track in Swindon, and there was kind of 5 or 6 cars lined up, and one of the guys that works there I knew anyway, so we were just having a bit of catch up. he's like, right, you've got to drive around the lap in these cars, so crack on, basically. I was like, all right. They wouldn't tell me what it was for, but I'm like, is this for what I think it is? And they're like, well, if we want you on it next year and we need to have a race, then we want to know that you're quick enough. And I was like, all right, I get you. So at that point, obviously I didn't have any racing, and, I just was probably a little bit pent up with like frustration. I just wanted to do something. So I absolutely thrashed these cars and ended up being pretty quick in them all. And basically there was a lap time that was set in each of the cars, and I had to get as close to it as possible. And I ended up smashing all the times that were set. And nice. I said to my mum, I was like, I'm either going to end up in a tree or I'm going to be fast. So that happened, and then I got asked back for like half a day. So originally the first time that I was down was like an hour, 2 hours driving. I had to do a little bit of chat on camera, kind of nothing scripted. It was just me being me, and if I was okay with a camera in my face and stuff like that. And then went down for half a day and had a Porsche 911. I think they might have had a GT3 there or something else. And again, it was kind of a bit more of a step up in cars. So they just kind of wanted to know that they could throw like an 800 horsepower vehicle at me, and I'd be like, yeah, that's all right, we'll crack on. And again, did all right. And then Andy Roman, who's the exec producer, kind of invited me down to the studios in London and just basically said, look, like, we've sacked the American, no one knows this yet, but we've sacked the American and we want you to be our driver. Like, how do you feel about it? And I was like, I mean, yeah, why not? But nothing else to do. No, I was like, of course I want to be, that's a fantastic opportunity. And then, that's kind of how it all started.
How that is awesome. It's awesome. How do those episodes work? Like from your side of it, how does the filming schedule work? Do you film it all on one day? Talk to me through a Grand Tour shoot.
So it varies on what episode it is. So when they do their kind of overseas challenges, they'll go abroad for maybe a week, sometimes 2 weeks to do one episode. And for example, when we did that Azerbaijan and Georgia one, so I flew out and I was out there for, I think it was just over a week or something. And they basically, they have kind of a loose thing on what they want to do, but it is like none of it's scripted. It's all them. And like, it cracks me up that a lot of people say, oh, it's this and it's that. Like the transcript of vocab and dialogue that they have after to go through is huge, because they just I don't know if you've met the boys or not, but they just bounce off each other and it's all authentic and stuff. So that's probably another reason why it takes so long to do it. But when it's an episode where it's literally me just doing the laps, I basically will maybe drive 2 cars in a day, maybe 4 cars, depending on what they can get at the time and my schedule. So the first season, I did all the cars for that season in about 3 days because I was going abroad somewhere for a few months. But generally how it happens is when we do the laps, I've got to get the same lap time maybe 2 or 3 times for it to be legit. So if I pull this one lap wonder out the bag and then I can't match it again, then it's the next best kind of thing. So we'll do a lap, set the lap down, and then jump out of that, jump in the other car, do a lap, set a lap again, and it's kind of usually in and out of the cars. So that's something that sometimes takes a little bit of getting used to is they'll do a lap and they'll shoot it at maybe corners 1, 2 and 3. Yeah. And then they'll be like, right, do we want to shoot the other car now? Rather than keep moving positions all the time. So then I'll jump in the other car and shoot that. But yeah, the lap that you actually see is pretty cool how it's put together, and it's it all is what it is.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And are they like you've got a mix of we need you to set a lap time, and then probably a mix of we want this to look quite sideways?
You probably see on all the kind of promos and stuff that there is a little bit of artistic flair with some of the car reviews that they do, and they get pretty sideways. But it's kind of down to me really. Obviously, if you're just pootling round, then it's not going to look fast anyway. But generally, I'm on a quali lap every lap I do, and it is kind of as fast as I can go around. So it looks fast anyway. But if there's a bit of artistic license where I can kick up some dust somewhere, then I'll do that as well, which there is most of the time.
Did you find it difficult just jumping into lots of different types of cars and just going wham straight fast straight away, or not too bad?
It wasn't too bad because I instruct as well.
Okay.
I'm kind of used to jumping in and out of different cars, and kind of my whole driving career, I've never really tested that much. So I've always been in and out of cars, straight into quali and stuff like that. So I've always had to smash the lap time straight away. But it's just when you have to jump from cars that are so completely different. So, for example, on one of the days I was filming with the XJ220. But the other car I was filming with was the VW Up. So I was like, okay, right, I'll get my head into this. So there is a couple, 2 or 3 laps of like acclimatization when you're doing something like that. But I think probably the weirdest one, or the weirdest kind of feature to jump in and out of, is a car that's got rear steer on it.
Okay.
Because you jump into something that hasn't. And so basically, when you drive a car that hasn't, you maybe go into a corner and it'll maybe just start to understeer. You've gone in a bit too hot. So then you respond to that understeer by either trying to get more weight on the front or backing off or something like that. Whereas in a car that's got rear steer, you'll go in and you maybe get that understeer, and then it will like do something to try and sort it out. And you're like, so you end up almost fighting with the car. And you've got to get used to how it behaves weirdly.
What specific car have you felt that in?
The AMG GTR.
Yeah.
And there was another one. I think the Lambo Huracan Performante has got it as well.
Yeah.
But the most noticeable was the GTR. Like, it's so sensitive to it.
That's so weird. That's so weird that it happens off, like you say, you turn in and then. Yeah, I'd always expect, I've driven some of the newer Porsches and stuff that have it, and it's just, it just works, whatever. You don't notice.
I don't know whether it's just because if you're driving it so hard that it doesn't kind of go in and you're like, oh, and then it does something. It's kind of, you go in and because you're really kind of sensitive to it, you'll feel it do something straight away, and then it will do something different when you're already thinking, right, I want to do this to it. But then, like, I didn't notice it really when I was driving it. It was only when I jumped into something that didn't have it and then jumped straight back into it. I was like, oh my God, this feels really unsettled. But then, a couple of laps into it, then you get used to it again.
Do you have any standout cars from that period of time of driving? Or funny stuff that happened?
So I think probably my favourite cars that I drove on it. So I really like the Lambo, the Huracan Performante, just because I think it was my first car that I drove on it. But it's wicked. It's so loud. It was obnoxiously orange, and it's just so much fun to drive. And it was really quick as well. So I like that. I really enjoyed the Ford GT as well. I think the handling on that was amazing. I just kind of wish it was a V8, just so it sounded a little bit more meaty. But again, the V6, it was pretty quick as well. And I really enjoyed the Ford Escort, the Cozzy. It was just so much fun because it's just so sideways, so easy, and you can like back it into the corner and it's like turning for you, and then obviously with a little bit of turbo lag as well. It's just a lot of character to it.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite sort of era of cars?
Do you know what? I'm rubbish with like historic stuff, to be honest.
Well, I mean, it could be 2020.
I'm just rubbish in cars in general, Sam. You work this out. I race them, but I'm rubbish with anything else.
Well, I
do quite like modern cars. I do quite like modern cars. I like the old Beamers. My dad's actually imported a Holden Commodore from the 80s. Cool. So we've got that at home, which is, it's got the Peter Brock livery on it from Bathurst. Yeah. So that's cool to drive. But I think probably, the old school Beamers, so like the E30s and stuff like that. And the Lotus Cortinas look pretty cool as well. But I think probably as new as possible when it comes to cars.
And in race car form.
That might help, yeah. But I'd have the nice ones on the road if someone wanted to give me them.
Yeah. No, it was going to be one of my questions of, like, I've come across a lot of racing drivers that I've met don't really, like, do road cars. Like, they just don't really, like, think about them that much.
Like my little nephew, I took him to Carfest. And he was like, oh my God, look at that. It's this. And I was like, all right. And he was like, what's that? I was like, don't know. You probably know more than me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it is quite common that we're just all a little bit rubbish when it comes to cars.
I think it's fair enough. The more time I spend on track, the less interesting road cars, I think, become to me. I like them. I think they're cool, but you just sort of go, well, I can't drive it that fast. And if it was on a track, I'd rather be in a race car, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That sort of.
I think you always look at like, the engine performance you get out of it and like boringly the comfort you have in them. Which most of the nice ones are not all that comfortable. Like the Lamborghini seats, oh my goodness, they were so like, they're just basically solid carbon fiber. Yeah. And like, obviously it's quite low, you plunk your bum into it. And I was like, oh, get me a cushion out the lounge.
They are awful. Those Lambo seats are another level of just not fun.
I couldn't do like a rally in it.
Yeah. So along this way, have you picked up and worked with various sponsors? Like how do these drives come about? How do you get a drive in, I don't know, a GT3 car, ideally without paying? Or getting paid?
It's probably a word of mouth more than anything, I think. So obviously with being involved in the Grand Tour, that's kind of lifted my profile quite a lot and, put me probably on the radar of people that perhaps I wasn't on before. But last year I did quite a lot of European Rallycross for the first time, which
sounds fun.
Honestly, it's the most fun I've ever had in a race car. It's like if I could go back to the start and only do Rallycross, I would. So that was basically the guy had set up the championship and he had a couple of spots left on the grid and he just wanted to obviously get some publicity and just because he knows obviously how fun these cars are and probably us track racers, we were always going to be like, oh my God, this is wicked. So he got in touch and just basically said, do I want to come down and have a go and have a race in it? So obviously bit his hand off and said yes, and then kind of did a few races of that. Similarly, end of last year, I did the Jaguar I-Pace E-Trophy in Saudi in November. And that was, again, I think probably just on the back of the kind of profile that I've got. And they ran me in the guest car, the VIP car. Yeah. So, I had an opportunity in that. So I think, I haven't secured a full season of racing, if you like, from off the back of the Grand Tour, which when they asked me to do it, I was thinking, oh my God, like finally, my prayer's been answered. But it's certainly given me a lot of opportunities with other stuff and opened a lot of doors for me.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, you just listed two completely different sort of events. the Rallycross, like talk to me, what is so good about Rallycross? Why is it that great? And, driving and stuff.
It's just so exciting. Anyone that does like drifting and stuff, you feel like a hero when you do a drift. And like you have to do it. You don't have to, but you're supposed to go sideways around across. And also you can hit people off, which is all the things you're not really supposed to do in track driving. And it's just the fans are really, really super pumped up. And it's almost like, not grassroots, because that kind of almost kind of lessens whatever appeal to it, but it just felt like everyone was there because they wanted to be there and everyone loved the same sport and everyone was kind of talking to each other, and it was like back in the day when you'd go karting and you'd all mingle with each other, whereas I think probably track motorsport, it can get a little bit snobby at times. So like I obviously went into this championship as a random that had never done Rallycross, and everyone was so helpful, and they ended up kind of inviting me back, and I ended up doing 4 race weekends with them. And
nice.
The cars are super loud, they're popping and banging, you've got like launch control, you've got a massive handbrake, like what's not to love about it?
It just looks like the most fun.
Yeah,
the most fun. Are there many series, like Rallycross series? If a randomer wanted to go and get involved, do you know if there's many that you can do?
I think there's quite a lot of like grassroots stuff. So I think I think there's like a Suzuki Swift Rallycross Championship, because I'm sure I tweeted about doing Rallycross and they messaged me and was like, come and have a go. And I think it's fairly cost effective as well, which I know that Jeremy and James and Richard did a episode on Rallycross, I think at Lynn Hill. So I think definitely, even if you just typed into Google, British Rallycross Championships in the UK or something like that, it'll bring up some opportunities. But I think probably if you compare Rallycross to circuit racing in the UK, it's not quite as big, because I think there's only a couple of Rallycross tracks in the UK, whereas obviously we've got quite a lot of race tracks. Yeah,
it looks like a lot of fun. Of those guys, Jeremy and everyone, who's the best driver?
It depends what you want to get out of them. So Jeremy's kind kind of a bit of an all-rounder. So he's quick on a lap and he can drift as well. James is surprisingly quick again. Like he probably isn't given that airtime as being, super quick. And Richard as well. They're all decent drivers. If you compared them to kind of Joe Bloggs on the street, they're all quite quick. But obviously, poor Richard has kind of got a name for himself as being a crasher. So yeah, don't know. If you want to go sideways, Jeremy. If you want to go to the shops and back safely, James. And if you want to do some rallycross and crash into people, then Richard.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to sort of ask you about, have you found being a sort of a woman in motorsport like good, bad, no different, same, like anything different about it versus what you think how the guys get treated?
I'm kind of quite thick-skinned, so there's probably stuff that goes on that I kind of like, it just goes like that. I don't even register it. But probably when I was a kid in go-karts, there was a lot of like the mechanics would be like, "You're going to let a girl beat you," like, and it would be kind of used as a negative that a girl would be quicker. But I think that's just natural, kind of society is kind of like that, and that's just kind of how it is. And it's not, that if I was quick, the mechanics would be like, fair play, she's a quick peddler, but are you gonna, like, it would just to try and motivate their driver.
Yeah.
So I don't really take massive offense to that, but I think that you've got to have good results. So when I was first kind of coming through the car stuff, like I was kind of learning, and obviously I didn't have championship wins and didn't have like the best results yet. And if you go into a new championship or a new team or whatever, they would always push you harder, or give you a bit more of a tap, a bit more of a hit to see if you're going to back out or not. And like ever since I was younger, my dad's always like, if anyone tries to like squeeze you off the track or intimidate you, don't let them intimidate you, because the first time you back out of something, they'll know that they can do that. Yeah. So I've probably raced a lot harder and a lot more kind of assertive on track than the guys have to be, because I've almost kind of got to earn my place there a little bit. Yeah. But once I got the results and people kind of know me as being a decent driver, and that I have to do that less. But if I come into a new championship, it's always the first couple of races, it's people kind of seeing what is she actually like, what's going to happen. But the main industry where I've kind of felt that it's been different is with the instructing side of things.
Right.
So I'll work on track days. For example, I work at Silverstone as an instructor there. So I'll sometimes do their track days for them, and you can buy tuition slots. So you go up and you say, right, I'll half an hour tuition slot, please. So there'll be 4 of us instructors on the day, and we'll just get assigned X, X, and X. And I had this one guy come upstairs, and he was in a caterer, and he wanted some instruction. And as instructors for Silverstone, we're not allowed to go in open top cars. So we were like, me and this other guy, Chaz Small, we were talking to him, and I was like, why don't you put a camera on your car and then we can review the footage? And his body language was just at Chaz, and I was stood here, and he was like, anyway, and I was talking to Chaz, and like even Chaz was like, what's his problem? Anyway, he went away, and we said, look, like if you want instruction, we can actually give you one of the Silverstone Renault Megane, so we can do the instruction in that if you want to know lines and stuff. So he was like, all right, yeah, we'll do that. So put his name down, and like Jo, who was the woman in the office, she saw all this happen, and she was like, I'm giving him you, and I want to see what he does. So he comes strolling upstairs. He's like, right, I'm ready for my tuition. And I was like, yep, you've got me. And he was like, what, do I not go with Chaz? Is it not Chaz? And I was like, no, I'm really sorry, you've actually got me. So he was like, okay. So we went down into the car, went out the pits, and by the second corner, he was basically shitting himself, because he's wanting to brake 20 meters before I'm still saying, come on, full power, keep going. And I will admit, I pushed him as hard as I could. And he came in, he pulled up and he went, you are actually amazing. He's like, you are absolutely brilliant. And you could see his whole demeanor and his whole body language had changed. And, it's just one of those things that people have in their head. I'm probably the same, that, most female drivers, I'm like, and I probably don't rate them, not as in racing drivers, but, drivers on the road. I'd generally say that, male drivers are generally better. And it's not that they're less competent, but it's just that they kind of get on with things more. Whereas I think some females can kind of worry about things and be a little bit more tentative. And that's especially on a racetrack, if you're instructing a female, like technique wise, they are heads and shoulders better than the boys. But it's just that they lack the bravery to go faster. But yeah, that's really the only time. I did actually have one woman, it was at Palmer Sport, so I was instructing there. And there was a woman and her husband, and the team leader gave the husband to me, and the woman ran over and was like, "No, sorry, can you put him with one of the boys? I want him to be pushed." Oh. And I was like, wow, you just sent women back, however many years. I said, do you realise I've probably got more? In fact, I have got more championship wins and more success than all of these guys lined up here. No offense, boys, all of these guys. And they were like, yeah, she has. And this woman was just like, oh, I didn't mean it, completely retracted what she said. So again, this poor man, I was just like, go, come on, what are you breaking there for? But yeah, other than that, it is all very positive, and people enjoy seeing me do well, and people support me for doing that as well. So
does it lead to more opportunities with some sponsors because they want to see women out there racing and stuff, or not necessarily? I
think probably the last year or two, there's maybe been a bit more of a push to see females involved a bit more. So, for example, obviously W Series.
Yes, I wanted to talk to you about the
female only championship. Obviously, that is an opportunity for females. So there are things that are kind of being put in place to give females a leg up. But my thoughts on it are that it should be a positive thing being a female in a male-dominated sport, because if I'm as quick as P1 or the quickest guy, but I'm the only female, then there's going to be more attention on me. So it's more beneficial for the sponsors. But I still think there is a lot of the kind of stereotypes out there that females aren't going to be quite as quick, or if I sponsor this girl and then she's rubbish, I'm going to look like an idiot because of course I've sponsored a girl when I could have sponsored a guy. So there is that as well. But I think if you do it right, and there is that push behind females in sport, then I think it's definitely a positive thing to do.
Yeah. So do you feel like you have to sort of represent the entire time?
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's probably quite normal.
When the W Series was launched, you were a little bit critical at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at it. Can you run me through your thoughts on it? And then I've also saw that you were meant to be doing it this year.
Yeah. So originally
sorry, can we just explain what the W Series is to the listeners in case they haven't come across it?
Yeah, so W Series is the world's first female-only single-seater championship. So it uses Formula 3 cars and 20 drivers on the grid, all female, and it's all fully funded as well. So you don't need to bring any budget whatsoever. Yeah, all the costs are covered, your accommodation, fitness, physio, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of it, if you win, then you win. There's basically $1.5 million prize fund as well, which is split down the full grid. So even if you finish last, you still get about like $5,000 or something. So
that's cool.
It's a world first really for something like this. Never mind, just for women to do. So it was launched at the end of 2018 for the 2019 season to be the inaugural year. And basically when it was first launched, I just kind of, for me, the only thing that's held me back isn't my gender, it's the lack of money. And, for me, I just thought it just doesn't feel right. All this money that's being spent, let's say the season cost 20 million. If that 20 million pound, if you took a few million and gave it to like 2 females in rallycross that are just on the cusp but need that extra lift, 2 in touring cars, again, 2 in single seaters, and so that every form of motorsport you had females at the top, then to me that's a more positive thing to do, and it's more authentic, and it will get females into every single side of motorsport. And I just didn't like that they'd almost created like a bit of a circus act, like a bit of an arena for it. And there'd been obviously Formula Woman back in the day that was a massive flop, and there'd been loads of other female only championships that had been done that just didn't work. So naturally I was a little bit skeptical, and I was just worried that, you know, in this climate that we're in, and like obviously Bernie Ecclestone's made a comment before, I think, saying like we should have female only motorsport and male only motorsport. And I was like, if this is a success, I'm really, really worried that that's what's going to happen. It's going to be separated into, you know, male and female motorsport.
Yeah.
So I kind of raised my concerns about it, but I still kind of stayed a bit open-minded just to see how the season would go together. And, you know, fair play to them. They didn't, you know, skimp on any money or any resources or support or anything like that. And it was super professional how it was run. The girls generally were all, you know, brilliant drivers, and, you know, created some amazing racing as well, you know, because ultimately it could be that every single race the girls would all crash into each other, and again that would have just been awful as well. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with it all. And originally I was due to race in Australia all of last year, and so I was actually out in Australia at the time, and I'd put loads of effort into kind of doing that. So as well as kind of being a bit that I don't agree with it, I couldn't say yes to do it. And then the Australian deal ended up falling through. So I was sat on my backside watching all these girls race all year. And I was like, it's going to cost me nothing. I haven't got any budget to race, so tick for that. And you win money at the end of it. I was like, I'm being stupid here. You know, if it was an embarrassment and they weren't running it as professionally as they were, then I wouldn't have done it. But I completely changed my mind on it. And I can understand now that the ways to make it sustainable and the ways to make W Series a long-term thing is by having that championship, because it is an arena to showcase the girls, but also it's an arena for sponsors. So if you haven't got that, or you kind of do two in Rallycross, two in this, two in that, it's kind of lessened a bit. So you might do it for 1 or 2 years and then there's no funding there. So I can completely understand why they've done it in the way they have.
Yeah, I think in terms of sort of eyeballs for sponsors, like you said, like if you build this series, you can market the series to everyone. Whereas if you just say this is this one person, exactly, like it's all spread out, and you sort of become just like a management agency. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like Racing Steps Foundation that was active back in the day. You know, that's the kind of, in my head, that's kind of what I thought would be good. And in an ideal world, if you had an unlimited pot of money, then that's the way that you'd go. But there isn't. And, you know, they've got to make it a successful business, really, to keep being able to fund the girls to race. So, end of the year, I applied to do it and then got through to the assessment phases and then got picked to be in the group of 20. So, cool. And then Corona hit.
The assessment phase, is that a classic shootout type situation, or
so they originally it was, you basically go to Almeria, which is in Spain, track in Spain, and you have basically 3 days kind of testing, if you like 2 sessions driving, and you get marked obviously on your lap times, how fast you are and how you interact with the engineers, you know, how professional you are, kind of your whole thing. And because there were already 5 Brits in it, they didn't really want any more Brits in the championship. So, but ideally, they want more, you know, from a wider range to come in the championship. So the first assessment I had to do was at Dunsfold, which is where all the cars are based, and it was a simulator assessment. So there was about 13 British drivers. We basically had simulated race weekends against each other. So we had Norris Ring and Assen, and we basically had to do a 40-minute practice, 30-minute quali, and then 30-minute race or something like that. And you actually race each other. So I ended up winning. I won both races. Oh, I've almost forgot that. Won both races. So then got asked to go through to the next phase, which is the testing in Almeria, where we were up against, we had Spanish drivers, Australian drivers, New Zealand drivers, you know, people from all over the place.
That's cool. Do you do a lot of sim driving?
Not really, no.
Had you done a lot of sim driving before this?
No, none. So I hadn't done any sim driving. And when W Series said that there was going to be this sim stuff first, I was like, oh man, I'm rubbish on a sim. I was thinking, I'm not going to get through. So what I'm going to do? But actually the W Series sims that they use are really, really realistic. So kind of knuckle down and kind of look, you've got to do it, so crack on. And then, skipping forward to now, start of this year, I was like, right, I can't afford to go testing in single seaters. Yeah. So I need to try and get some sort of driving in. So I ended up buying a sim at the start of the year. And then obviously with coronavirus and lockdown, I haven't been on it as much as I should be because I've been doing a part-time job somewhere else. But I'm getting into the sim stuff a little bit more, as frustrating as it is.
Yeah. What are you racing on in?
So the hardware, I've got a SimCube wheelbase and I've got Hughes Syncbeld pedals, and that was all kind of put together by PRS simulators, racing sims. So I just kind of said I wanted something that was not going to completely bankrupt me, but I want something that's good enough quality that it kind of feels all right. So I've kind of done a few races I've just started on iRacing. Mainly I've been on R Factor for majority of it, and then I've got Race Room as well, but to be honest, I haven't been on it all that much. But I've done a couple of races in the race All-Stars trophy, so that's kind of, it looks like almost the kind of main biggest one at the moment. So I did a couple in that, got my arse handed to me, but got better with each race as I kind of learn more. Sim driving is different to driving in real life. And then I've got a race this Saturday for the pro racing sim dude as well. So
cool. How do they differ? What do you say the biggest difference is between racing on a sim and real life? Or driving on a sim in real life?
Yeah, just the technique you have to use to get the car to do what you want. So there's certain parts of it that are really realistic, and then there's others that, like for example, on R Factor, on certain cars, you have to go down, let's say Cops at Silverstone, it's quite a fast right-hander.
Yeah.
So you'd think that it might just be a quick dab on the brakes to fifth, turn and back on the power again.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of quick dab on the brakes, down 2 gears to fourth, just to get the nose to turn, and then immediately back up to fifth again. Or like Paddock at Brands, you smash the gears down to third as quick as possible. Like, don't worry about blowing the engine up because you can't do that. It's a game. Smash down to third, straight back up to fourth again, and then up to fifth. So you're really using the engine braking, not to slow the car down, but to get the car to turn. And then another car I've driven, which was on the All-Stars race at Silverstone, which was Tartus PM18 or something like that. Watching the quick sim guys, they just cursed for so long. So like into Brooklands, for example, at the end of the straight, naturally as a circuit driver, you kind of try and turn in and kind of carry speed all the way up to your apex and kind of then you squeeze your power on. Whereas like these guys are kind of turn in, so they brake hardly, turn in, and then just don't do anything. Don't balance the throttle, don't brake, don't add any throttle, don't do anything until you're pretty much straight, and then you add the power in.
Wow. And
it feels odd to not do something. For ages I'm like, okay, I'll wait. And naturally you're like, I want to, as soon as you do anything, you spin. But and I only knew that from watching the quick sim guys do it.
And is that how you've got better at and learnt these things, by watching other people?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that thing about changing down loads. I saw this the other day. I was playing on Gran Turismo Sport, and I was like, okay, let's see what the fastest lap is, and it was like 10 seconds faster. You're just like, I don't understand how it could be that much faster. And then I saw it was exactly that on one of these guys. He was changing down like so fast and so many gears, and then literally going straight back up again. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, like you'd be in the wall if you did that in an actual car. And I think that's probably with the pro drivers, it's almost a bit of a negative actually having the race experience on the track.
Yeah,
like if you come into sim driving completely fresh, then you learn that. Which one of my housemates, he instructs for GT Academy, and he was saying a lot of the sim drivers, when they were doing the kind of real world driving, he had to stop them doing that kind of stuff. Okay. But that's all they knew on how to drive.
Yeah. Does that GT Academy still exist?
No, I don't think so. I think they've wound down a lot if they have. There might only be certain regions that do it. But it was massive at one point, and then I think it's done its job now. So I think they've got to try and tie it in with the game release as well. And I don't think there's been a new game release for a while. So
yeah, true. And it must cost them a bomb to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it must be worth it. I mean, you look at Jan Mardenborough, like he's outstanding now. He's a factory Nissan driver, but it's a lot of a headache for someone, I think. Probably.
Yeah, I think that I look at that and go, it's just a really amazing, even if they don't turn out to be a phenomenal racing driver at the end of the day, chances are they're probably pretty good, because if you're the number one or whatever at one of those games, you've got commitment. But just the idea that people can sit in their room and be like, oh no, actually, like, if I get really good at this, there is a possibility that I could get in a real race car and drive it. That's just cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, I couldn't sit in my room for hours on end that they do. Like some of the kids, like especially if you're at like an autosport show and you've got a sim stand set up, these little kids will wander up like, yeah, I want to have a go. And then they'll just find like 5 seconds from somewhere and you're like, what? And he's like, well, actually, I've done 1 million hours on this track actually. So I'm like, fair play. I couldn't sit in my room all day. Yeah.
When you're coaching people, and let's say those Silverstone ones, so do you have like 20 minutes with each person or half an hour with each person? Does it break up like that?
Yeah, so if I'm doing a one-to-one thing with someone, then they'll literally have all day with me. But certain tracks like track days and bits and bobs like that, it's usually just a tuition slot. So they can book an hour-long slot or a half an hour slot. It just depends what they want.
Is it really difficult trying to coach someone over in like 20 minutes?
No, you pick stuff up pretty quickly.
Is there something that most people, like if you just said, you didn't even need to look and just be like, okay, I can pretty much, there's a few things. I know I used to ski instruct and there's pretty much something that like everybody does. And even if you don't know anything about them, you're like, I'm pretty sure I can call them out on this one.
Vision.
Is there any vision? Oh yeah, I bet
always
that.
Number one, vision.
So can you explain that to the listeners?
Yeah, so as humans, we're kind of evolved to look as far ahead as we can like run in terms of speed. So when you drive on the road, you kind of learn to move your eyes up as quick as you drive on the road. And obviously you take that to a track where you're doing 3-4 times the speed. Your eyes are a little bit lazy, so you don't really want to look as far as you should. So for example, at Silverstone, let's use Club, which is the right-hander onto the brand new, or to the new pips, so where the wing is and everything. So it's kind of an awkward corner because you've got to turn in really late. So you kind of got to go quite wide. But if you look just in front or through the windscreen, you don't realise actually the circuit goes over there. You naturally only put a little bit of lock on. So you might turn this much. And then you're like, oh no, it's tightening up. So you need to be like 2 or 3 steps ahead of where you're going to end up. And obviously when you get quicker and quicker, that will happen quicker. And so you've just got to be super, super prepared. And like, if I'm sat next to someone and I'm not even looking at their eyes and they'll do a movement, they'll turn the wheel and I'll go, look down the straight, and immediately they go like that and the hands go like that. Because your hands follow where your eyes are looking. So like when you're driving down a motorway, if you look at an orange cone, you will hit that orange cone. And you're not thinking, I'm going to drive towards it, but your hands will just drag you over. Which, like I've always been told, like if there's a crash, don't look at the crash. Look through it and you'll get through it. So that's the theory behind that.
I 100% do that. And I know it's something that I'm not very good at, and I know it's something I'm trying to work on. Yeah. But like,
same with me.
Catch yourself like to do it. Watching the gear changes.
Yeah. Like I'm currently trying to, on iRacing, I've been doing some laps around Monza in the F3, and like coming on the exit of Ascari, because it's quite tight, and obviously you're going quite quick, and there's quite big sausage curves, and you're trying to like not hit the sausage curves, so you look at them, and like in my head I was like, why are you've just shortened your vision by like 50 meters. Like look down the straight. And as soon as I look down the straight, everything else relaxes because you're not looking at you're not like, oh, there's a curve there. You're looking at the long straight. And so everything's a lot smoother. So I have to tell myself to do it 100%.
It's so weird how something like that makes such a difference to how smooth you can be.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. So you did the Grand Tour stuff, and then have you done some precision driving type things since then, or?
I'm just trying to think what we've done. I've done a few like music videos and TV adverts and stuff like that.
Music videos?
Yeah, like not me singing, like driving on it.
What did you have to do in that?
It was super easy. It was one for Mabel with her song Don't Call Me Up. So we were based in London, and basically there's one shot where she's sat on the back of this Beamer, like singing to the camera. with all our friends in the back, and we had to drive around this car park, but it was quite narrow, so they just got me in to do the driving while she was singing at the camera. And then with the advert, it was drifting around someone that was stood stationary looking at a camera, but that's not come out yet, so that'd be cool to see that.
That's cool. And in that scenario, do they just go like, right, you've got one take, go?
No, usually it's a million takes and you're like, I wish it was just one take. Usually it's like, yeah, cool, we'll do that. Or like they get the models to do something slightly different. And I mean, we probably ended up doing maybe like 12 or 15 takes, actually not that many. But
did you nail it every time?
Pretty much. There was like one or two where I just stopped maybe like half a metre wider or drifted half a metre wider than what I wanted to. But everyone else watching is like, yeah, brilliant. Whereas it's me and the stunt coordinator, like we're both drivers. There's I'm drifting around, I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and he knows that I'm slightly up. And like I'll stop and he'll look at me and I'll be like, but like it's still perfect for the shot, but it's not what I want to do, kind of thing.
And he's like, it could have been a foot that to the right.
The guys, some of the guys whose car it was, they were kind of stood watching, and it's like, you are perfect every single time. And I was like, yeah, I was.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How do you go about getting more seat time? Because obviously seat time is super important for getting good, getting quick. And it's probably the cost of seat time is probably what stops, I would say, most people getting good and quick.
Yeah.
Obviously you do instructing. Do you think that's a really good way of keeping your skills up and improving and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think probably my driving and car control and stuff didn't really take off until I worked at Palmer Sport. And I'll always sing Palmer Sport's praises for this, that especially somewhere like Palmer Sport, where you are pushing these guests to the absolute limit and they are spinning off and pushing themselves, is obviously we don't want them to spin, so you learn from the passenger seat what they're going to do and what it's going to happen before it even happens. And you can almost, like, I so many times go around some of the corners, I've like got the wheel, so I'm sideways and I've got the wheel, got opposite lock on, saved it, and then I'm like, carry on again. So you learn a lot from the feeling, going up through your bum and into your body on what's going to happen. And as a novice driver, they do things that you would never ever do, or you might be pushed into doing because of a situation, and you learn stuff that you would never have the opportunity to learn. So I think, especially being in the passenger seat as well, you've got to stay alert, you've got to be looking in front of you, behind you, what the driver's doing, and you have got to be on it all the time. And it's tiring when you're instructing someone, like mentally you're absolutely knackered at the end of the day. So yeah, I think that's definitely a positive, to kind of find some track time if you can. But I just think it's, motorsport in general, it is obviously all about money, and it's an expensive thing to do. And the whole reason why I'd never done single seaters is because it's even more expensive than like GTs and stuff. So like, for example, to do a test day in a F3 car, you're looking at between like £7,000 and maybe £12,000 for one day. I haven't got that money. So you've just got to try and find, sponsors to try and cover it, or you do contra deals with the team to try and do it that way, or anything. And at the start of the year, when I had the W Series opportunity, I'm not ashamed to say there was a lot of sleepless nights, because I'm like, I haven't raced a full-time championship for a long time. I haven't raced single seaters before, and the technique to drive a single seater is completely different to most of the things that I've done. And I'm like, how am I going to hit the ground running? I'm like, I need seat time. And I was asking so many people left, right and centre to try and, get something together. And obviously with coronavirus now, that's put a complete stop to it. And it'll probably affect next year as well, because obviously businesses are going to be trying to get back on their feet from that. But it is, as you say, it's the most important thing is seat time.
Yeah. What's going back to some of the coaching stuff? What's the most sort of stupid thing you've seen someone do whilst you've been coaching them?
I mean, it's not stupid, but it makes me laugh, and it also frustrates me so much at the same time. It's like they'll get in the car, and obviously they're really, really nervous, and they're all a bit jittery, and I'll be like, right, okay, so we're just going to make sure you can all reach the pedals fine, and you're comfortable with pushing them and blah blah blah. So they get in and I'm like, okay, right, just make sure you can get the clutch down. And they're like, press the accelerator. And it's like, and I'm like, whoa. No, the clutch on the left. Press the brake hard. And I'm like, no, so it's just a normal car, normal pedals at the bottom. So you've got your accelerator, your brake and your clutch. And they go, yes. I'm like, okay, right, so just can you get the clutch to the floor? And then again, and I'm like, right, don't worry, I get you nervous, but just listen kind of to what I'm saying, because they're just so panicked. The body's just like, I don't know. So that happens quite often. Or
I totally get that. I've had it getting in with an instructor in the car, and I'm just like, for some reason you're like, and you're like, no, but I can drive, but like not now. Right now, I cannot drive. In the first like 5 laps, you are awful.
Yeah, and it's natural, which is why like, I just laugh about it, and but like, people left foot braking as well. Like this one guy I had, he was just adamant he wanted to left foot brake, and I was like, do you left foot brake in your road car? And he was like, yes. I was like, right, so you've got an automatic then? No. And I'm like, right, so you've got a manual with a clutch? Yes. And you left foot brake? Yes. All right, so when you get to a roundabout and you need to change down the gears as well as braking, what do you do then? He said, I'll just left foot brake. And I was like, but how do you change gear? So, well, come off the brake and then use the clutch to go down the gears. And I was like, I think you're wrong here. I was like, I think you're probably a little bit confused. And he was like, no, I'm adamant. I was like, all right, well, here's my Twitter address, right? When you drive home today, can you tweet me and tell me what you're doing with the pedals? And he tweeted me and he was like, yeah, you were right. So it was just his brain that was just, confused at the time, because he was so overwhelmed with stuff. But he was adamant. He was absolutely adamant. I was like, well, if you do that, I was like, that's dangerous, man. You need to not do that.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Every now and then I do a little bit of left foot braking on the road in a manual car.
Yeah.
And it always, invariably, I'll accidentally slam on the brake a little bit rather than pressing the clutch or whatever.
And like road cars, the brakes tend to be super sensitive as well, because you've got the servo. But like I'm the same. Like if there's, a roundabout you come into or a corner that, you don't need to change gear or whatever, and you just want a little, just to make sure your left foot's still alive and awake, then yeah, I do the same as well. That's how I pretty much taught myself to left foot brake.
I think that's the way. It says teach yourself to left foot brake. Just do it often, not in a race car.
Yeah, that's how I learned how to heel and toe as well. In my road car.
Yeah. I think the day I started properly left foot braking, someone was explaining. I talked to a lot of people about it, and some people were like, just do it. Okay, fine. And I'd done it in my road car, but I hadn't done it in the race car at that point in time. And then I talked to someone about, and he talked about the seat. And I was like, oh, this is a different thing I've never thought about. It's like, if you have a fitted seat in a race car, you don't move. If you don't have a fitted seat, for example, you move. So you hit the brakes with your left, and you slide tons, and you slide onto the brake pedal.
Yeah.
And you then press it harder. And then I was like, oh, that explains why I'm like, every time I try it, I'm massively just like over braking. And then the race car, you're locked in and you don't move and whatever. And then it's just so much easier.
Yeah. Because in your road car, you've almost kind of got it's with your foot, you're pivoting your foot. Whereas like, if you try and have a brake in anger, you put your full leg through it. And as you say, you go with it. Whereas when you're in a race car, obviously you're strapped in anyway, even if you haven't got a fitted seat, like you're still anchored in, so you can't really move. But that was one of my favourite things to do when I started. I was driving on the road, and like all my friends were like 17 and just passed the test. I was like, try left foot braking. I like brace myself. I'm like, go on, give it a go. And they're like, why are you bracing against it? I'm like, just try it. They're like, how do you know that would happen? I'm like, I don't know, just knew.
Yeah, it reminds me of the first time I bought an Audi, and I'd only driven like the kind of rubbish stuff before then, and it had really sensitive brakes, and I literally took it for a test drive at the dealership, and then just pressed the brakes once, and the guy's like sitting next to me, it's like into the windscreen. Like, oh, sorry, I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, it was like even people that aren't used to like heavy braking. So I took my mum out on a passenger ride around Silverstone. And like even coming out of the pits, like I braked, and she, like, her head's like in the footwell, just because they're not used to having to like brace themselves, prop themselves up.
Yeah. Not ready. Cool. Well, I normally wrap these up with 5 questions. Are you ready? Some of these might be tricky. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. First question. 5-car garage. Unlimited value.
This is going to be really rubbish. All the car people, they're going to be like, oh my God.
You can have, if you wanted, you could have 4 race cars and a daily driver. If that was something you would like.
I'll do a mixture. So I would have a 911 GT2 RS. I would have...
Not GT3?
No, GT2, a bit more special. I would have the Lamborghini Huracan Performante, just because I loved it from the thing.
With a cushion?
With a cushion. I'd just get some custom seats. If I can afford to have that, I'd have some like comfy custom seats.
For sure.
What would I have? I'd have like an old Sierra Cosworth race car.
Ooh.
Just because they're crazy. 2 left. I would probably have something like a Bugatti or something like that. Just something a little bit even more mental.
Bit crazy. Chiron?
Yeah. And they're pretty pricey as well. So like, I could sell it if I needed to.
You could.
And then the last one, probably something like fun, like a Caterham or something like that. But completely different to the rest of them in terms of like, you know, how it feels to drive.
Yeah. I always come back to Caterhams. It's like they're just awesome fun.
In fact, do you know what? I might swap out something. I might swap out the Cosy for a LaFerrari.
Ooh, nice.
They're completely different. 5 is not enough, clearly.
5 is not enough. You could have 100.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, okay. That would take far too long as well. Yeah. Right. You can only drive 1 car for the rest of your life, and you're allowed like a £500 banger on the side. So if you had to carry luggage or whatever, so it can be a sports car.
I would have a Bentley Continental, GT Continental. They're one of the new ones because it's the comfiest car I've ever driven, and it's fast and it's luxurious and just I'd
ticks
have that.
A lot of boxes.
Yeah,
awesome. Right, what do you think is undervalued in the car world at the moment, or race car world
in general? Like as in by people in general?
Yeah, by you.
As in an actual car or a part of a car?
A car.
What is undervalued? Again, probably the Bentley, because I think like a lot of people, obviously, with a car like that, you know, they're either like, oh, you know, it's a Bentley. Why would I get that when I could actually maybe have a Rolls, which is a little bit more special, or something like that. But actually, to drive them, like they are, the older one, it feels like a bit of a big car to drive. It feels like a tank, but actually, the new one, it feels really agile and it doesn't feel as big as what it actually looks like and what it actually is. And there's a lot of people that poo-poo it and then actually they get forced to drive it. So like I do, I've done a little bit of work for Bentley, and there'll be a Bentley owner that comes down and he brings his friend along because his friend just wants to do something. And he's like, I don't really like Bentleys. You know, I'm not really into this. It just, I think it looks too big. And then they drive it and they're like, I might actually inquire about a Bentley now. So I think, the GT.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time, or a week, in a V8 convertible at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
In Sweden. And
nice.
It was, actually, I was very surprised considering how heavy that convertible is.
Yeah.
Like, it's basically like 2.5 tons or something.
Yeah.
When you push on and drive down like a good road, it drives properly.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, the old one didn't really do that much.
And especially I think the W12 engine as well, like it's so fast. Like Guy Smith and I drove the convertible and the hardtop at Goodwood last year, and like they entered us into the shootout, and I was like, all right, okay. So we're up against like McLarens and stuff like that, but it got up there pretty swiftly, and like it's just like a tank. It just keeps on going. The W12.
Yeah. What have you driven a few things up the hill?
I've driven that. I've driven the LFA up the hill.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was pretty special. I couldn't push it 100% though, which was annoying. Because again, they put it in the supercar shootout, and I was like, well, if you're not allowing me to push it 100%, I was like,
why can you not push it? Or they were
just looking after it. Yeah, there was something that needed kind of doing to it, and they were like, we don't want to risk, it going wrong. So I had to look after it. I still got some smirk off the tyres, but yeah. So I've driven that, and then the LC 500 as well. That, I think that was it. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. One of the things that I've experienced is I've been up a few times in passenger seats and stuff. It's how long it takes to do a run if you're a driver or a passenger.
You mean the full experience?
Yeah.
So you get people like, you need to be in your car now. All right, yeah, cool. So you're already half an hour before the time that it's due, and then you sit there for an hour before, and you can't get out your car or go anywhere because they need you there just in case.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and then you wait up at the top for probably an hour, and then it takes another half an hour to get back down into your slot. So, yeah, for the spectator to go like that, it's like 2 hours for us.
Yeah, and then you do it, and you basically get back down, and you've got to start and do it again.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's cool though. Right, final question. What is the most interesting car to you at the moment? It could be a race car, could be a road car.
Most interesting car. Probably the new Ferrari that's hybrid.
The SF90.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if it matches kind of all the hype that's surrounding it. I know it will, and it'll probably surpass all the expectations it has. But yeah, I think the SF90 for me.
Yeah, I sort of forgot about that car. There's so many new cars at the moment. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that one, I think it's like 900 horsepower or 850 horsepower.
Because like the Lamborghini, they've brought out one similar, haven't they? That's like 1,000 horsepower or something crazy.
I don't know.
It's called, yeah.
Maybe. I think one of like 5 or something. Cool. Well, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
That's all right. Now you know that I'm not a car person. Anything to do with like person. Team cake, I'm sad.
You're just not a nerdy car person.
Yeah. Maybe I should learn that more in lockdown. I've learnt to juggle and I've learnt to moonwalk.
Nice.
Obviously, all very useful skills in life.
Rubik's Cube, that's another one. If you're randomly bored one day.
That's true. Let's get one of Amazon.
Cool. Well, thanks very much.
No worries. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.